Okay, and hello everyone. Thank you very much for choosing to watch this video. When I decided that I would have a series wherein I have conversations with some of the best teachers whom I have had the chance to observe or work with, then there was one person in my mind. I was very sure that the first episode must be done with this person only. Uh, I have observed her classes when she was teaching at British Council. She has over 20 years of experience in teaching, and beyond that, she has also taught at the British Council. And when I observed her classes, I could see magic happening in the classroom. So the teacher is quiet, calm, composed, but the students are speaking. And these are not very well students who are very well versed in the language, but then they were at the beginner level or elementary level. She had taught something to them, very short time she had taken to teach that, and she had given them plenty of time to practice. And she just walks around the room smiling, calm, and composed. And it's the same way the students are also, they are not so much worried. They are also smiling, they are also calm and composed. They were speaking to each other, and the teacher makes stops here and there to make small corrections, not even to make corrections, just to ask some questions that will actually help the learners to make the corrections by themselves. And when they get the right answer, she just smiles, nods, and then moves ahead with her observation. So this is magic, which I saw unfold in front of my eyes. And I was wondering, how does she do that with someone who is at a basic level or at an elementary level of proficiency in English? How is it possible? And it was such a great experience to observe her class. And I really wish to reach a stage where I could create that magic in the classes I teach. And today, I'm going to talk to her particularly about teaching beginners and elementary level learners. But for the record, she also specializes in teaching students with special needs. She has been a part of a number of panel discussions wherein she has given valuable inputs related to that. And if you wish to go through those videos, when I find the link, I'm going to share it. I'm not very certain if they are online yet. So once I find it, I will definitely include it in our description box. Well, now let me start uh, with a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview, Mary. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you so much for all your kind words. I don't deserve all that. Thank you.
That's how humble she is. Well, let me start with the first question that I have. When it comes to teaching students who are at the beginner or elementary level, uh, there is a big challenge for the teachers in terms of how much should I aim. When I saw the magic unfold, I was definitely thinking, would I be able to do it? But how much were you actually expecting from the students? No, it cannot be. We cannot expect them to speak for 2 minutes at a stretch when they are at beginner or elementary level, is what I gather. So, in your words, if you could tell us what is a reasonable expectation, an achievable lesson aim for an elementary level or beginner level students, it would be great.
See, when you say that, how much should I expect from a student, whether they can speak for a minute or for 2 minutes? See, it's not about the length of time, but how well they can talk. And even if it is going to be just a sentence, are they able to take the effort to present it well? Now, in my classes, something that I have always learned was it's okay to have silent times. There are times when the learners might be thinking, they might be processing what they want to tell. It's okay, it's perfectly fine. But give them the time. But once you give them the time, you can see that they are ready to come up with language. And now, as a teacher, what am I going to expect from my learners? I should know my learners well. So, for any teacher, you should know your learners. If you know your learners, you will be able to plan your lessons likewise. So, basically, what I do with all my classes is I do needs analysis. So, once you know your learners, so when you do your needs analysis, you will know their level, you will know their learning style, you will know kind of what is their interest, if they are interested in a particular topic. So, all those information that you get about the learner can be incorporated in your lesson. So, when you give a learner a lesson that they are interested in, you'll definitely find them talking in class.
Oh,
And always know their learning styles. It's very, very important. And once you know their needs, you plan the lesson accordingly. So, when you know the level of the learner, they will be able to produce only this much. So, plan it accordingly. Whether it's a beginner, an elementary, or a pre-ed class, you can just give them what they can take. Don't give them more than what they can chew.
thank you so much for sharing that, Mary. You did touch upon a point about the needs analysis. It
Yeah.
would be great if you could tell us a little bit about how you actually do the needs analysis.
So for any class, whether it's a teacher training class or ESL learning class or even a children's class, young learner class, I always do a needs analysis on the first day that I meet them. Now, since the online teaching has started, if it is a one-to-one learning, I do it before I start my first lesson with them. Now, a needs analysis will help the teacher know who the learner is, what is their language background. So, if we are teaching them English, we need to know what their language background is, how much they can use the language. So, you might have some questions where they are just going to tick some boxes, and you can also give them one or two questions where they can write down one or two sentences. Now, from those, you will know the level of the learner. Also, make sure that you include some questions where you ask them about their learning styles. Are they comfortable reading? How well do they understand when they listen to something? Do they learn language using videos? Or do they have time to speak with someone who knows English? So these learning styles will also help us. So a needs analysis will tell us all this. And also, mainly the needs analysis will tell us what they're looking forward in your class. When you see, I can also put it like this. A student finally becomes your customer.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when you know what your customer needs, you give them that in the class. So when you know what your student needs, your learner needs, you provide that in the class. And then you have a happy student in the class. And that is what the needs analysis does.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you use the term that you can consider that person as a like a customer also, and give them what they need, and they would actually be happy. Um, so for a minute, it did take me to the economic aspects that when some students actually find it difficult to pay, and teachers also deserve to live a great life. So the pay band for teachers should also be high, and on the other hand, it should be affordable for the students also. Has this question ever arisen to you? I'm sure it would have arisen, but then were you able to kind of think more about it or come up with anything that might solve this
See,
anywhere?
when a learner has a need, so now even if I have a need and I need to learn something, I should be ready to spend some money for it. Because
Yes,
when you give free classes, sometimes students don't value that much.
absolutely.
I'm sure you would agree with that.
I have
Yeah. So
experienced that.
yeah. So I would always say get something. Now, something that I've always offered to my students is if it's a one-to-one class, you might have to pay me a certain amount. But if you feel that you cannot pay that much, come in a group. I'm
Hmm.
always willing to help you out. You pay lesser when it is a group. So because I would always love to have a group class because a group class helps with a lot of peer learning also. And then it is good for the student, it's good for the teacher also. But
Oh,
I
well,
wouldn't agree with a lot of free classes. Maybe one demo free class,
hmm,
but then they need to pay. Only then they value the lessons.
I would completely agree with that. And one demo helps them to decide whether they want to pick it up
Exactly.
or not. I can certainly agree with that. Um, You mentioned, touched upon this aspect related to peer learning. How far and using what kind of methodology can we promote that, particularly in the beginner or elementary level classes?
See, peer learning is something that can be used in any level, whether
Hmm.
it is a beginner or even an advanced level class. They learn a lot. Peer learning can be maybe for checking something that each of them has done. It can also be more like an accountability with each other. So you give them a task and you tell them you're going to work together, make sure that both of you do it. So they are accountable to make sure that the other person also finishes. And also another thing is you set targets for them. Together you're going to do this much. So, and also when you give them a little time, not much time, they'll make sure that they work for it. And peer learning helps a lot. I use it always in my classes.
Wonderful. Yes, I have seen that because when the students were practicing groups, once you went to one of the students, said, "Is that right?" And then he was trying to correct, and then there was another student, and then you asked, "Could you try this?" And so instead of you explaining it, actually they
Yeah,
easily learned from each other.
yeah. They learn a
Uh,
lot from their peers.
I would certainly agree. And I think they are able to relate to the peers also a little bit more
Very true.
than, yeah.
Very true. See, when they learn with their peers, the best thing is they know that they all are of the same level. So
Hmm.
they're happy to talk to each other and they learn. Because when you have someone next to you who's of your same level, you'll feel more comfortable talking to them. And that is where the learning happens.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's certainly a great point to for some of the teachers who are possibly watching this. I would like to ask this question about repetition that is needed in the beginner or elementary level classes. Particularly for them, I feel the repetition is more necessary because sometimes we teach something, the next class we repeat, and the third session we do see that they are struggling with that same aspect, maybe just self introduction, maybe 2 or 3 lines, but still they are finding it difficult to go ahead even after some repetitions. But is there a way to make this repetition sound less boring? Because sometimes they may feel that I'm not moving anywhere from this self introduction. For the last 3 lessons, you have been doing the same. So, what could we possibly do about this?
See, this all starts with the learning itself. Learning is the first step. So, in the first step, something that I've always found really effective in classes, guided discovery. So, when you're teaching them, if you can help them to understand how to use the language, what to use in the right place, and they discover it by themselves, learning happens there. And then the next step that you would do is checking if they have understood it. And then you move on to reviewing language. So when you review, giving them practice. So practice can be with controlled practice or freer practice in class the same day before you send them away. Next class, when they come in, you give them a review. Now, don't let them know that you're doing a review. Put them in some activity where they're going to use what they have learned in the previous lesson as a review. Now, if you have taught them introduction in the first class, you're going to give them a situation where they're going to speak with another person. Now, ensure that you have your second lesson in mind and introduce the review also over there as a warmer. So you get to hear what they're using and then you move on to the next lesson. So any kind of practice, any kind of repetition, don't let the learners know that you're repeating the lesson. It should be scaffolded in some kind of activity.
Okay. So uh, it has to be like camouflaged with an
Yeah,
activity, but it's not
yeah,
the same lesson that I am
yeah,
repeating.
definitely, definitely.
Well, wonderful. I think that's like a magic tool that some of the teachers who are listening could use. I would definitely like to know about. some of the teachers who, if we were teaching at places like British Council or any other language schools, we know about the freer practice and the controlled practice.
Yeah.
But for others, any other teachers who are possibly working at private schools or government schools, if you have to kind of briefly say what these two are and what is the difference, could you please
Yeah.
explain?
So every time you teach something, I'm going back to the topic that you have told, the introduction, okay, or self-introduction. So when you teach them self-introduction, you're going to first uh, introduce them to what is self-introduction, and then you might teach them some phrases. They learn about what to use, where to use, and then as soon as you finish teaching them, in the class, you give them a control practice. Now, a control practice would be a practice where you have already given them some parts of the sentences and they just have to use some keywords. So it can be a gap fill, it can be a true false, it can be a matching exercise, because it's only a little that they use, but the rest is what you have already given them. But a freer practice is where you just give them one question and they are expected to use sentences. The sentences of what you have taught, maybe the phrases completely also. I hope that helps.
It certainly would help some people who haven't heard this term yet. Uh,
Definitely.
well, I have a question in terms of something that is going on in the minds of a number of teachers, particularly if they want to be very sincere. But then they somehow they feel like they lack a skill somewhere. And that question is that uh, how much ever I teach, the students don't get it. So is there something that I need to change? And how do I deal with this? So what would be
See
your
how,
suggestion for this?
yeah. I would definitely say that there's something wrong with our teaching if the students don't learn. Okay. From every lesson, there should be something that the learner takes as an outcome. If the learner hasn't taken anything, we haven't done our homework well. Going back to what I told you earlier, we should do a needs analysis. We should know what the learner needs. If we know what the learner needs, we give them the right lessons. We give them the right choice of vocabulary or grammar, whatever they need. Now, when they know that the lesson is about something they are interested in or that they lack in, they'll definitely be they will pay attention in the class, and that will help you deliver a wonderful lesson. They will definitely be motivated to listen, pay attention in the class.
Well, I'm certainly glad you answered this by connecting it with what we start the programs with. Uh, However, I do have another question which you kind of partly answered already. Now, when a teacher feels that my lesson did not meet the objective, okay, so suppose in instance I need to do something different, and how should they go about their own self-analysis of what has happened and how to correct it?
See, again, going back to what I said, once you know what the learner needs and you know the learning style of the learner. See,
Hmm.
now if you are my student and if you don't like reading at all, I cannot keep giving you reading comprehensions in class. And I cannot give you a guided discovery where you're going to take the grammar from the reading because you don't like reading. So the minute you see a reading text, your mind is blocked. So, as a teacher, I should know what my learners would be happy to do in class. So, if you are a person who's a visual learner, maybe I can show you a video where something from my lesson can be taken from there. And that will help my learners be interested in it. Always, as a teacher, be ready for the lesson because when you're ready for the class, the learners are also happy to take part in the class. Now, after we have started the class, if we go around checking for things or looking up for something, that shows that we as a teacher are not fully ready for the student who is ready for the lesson. So we have to do our homework.
Yes. So the moment you said when we are not ready, we are looking for this and that, I saw only myself there, who is often looking for something after I start the lesson. So yeah, it is
See,
highly essential. Yeah.
I'll tell you two things that I always do. Now,
Mm.
even if it is a face-to-face class or an online class, I keep my things organized. I always have a PPT. Now, my PPT might not have all the information on it. I might have just clues, but it goes in the order in which I want my lesson to go, which means I know what's coming up next. So, as a teacher, if we are ready, the lesson will go really well.
Well, viewers, I'm sure you are actually noticing this when she says the learners are happy and the lesson will go really well. You can see that vibration. You could feel how much she really means it, and that answers my question about the magic that she creates. How is she so calm and composed, and also makes the students feel the same way, and the what we want happens in the class. Uh, Great. Thank you so much for sharing those secrets, Mary.
See,
It,
one more thing that I forgot was
Mhm.
when you feel that you're not reaching out to the student, no, it could be a boring lesson in terms of the level of the learners. Now, going back to what I said, needs analysis. If you know the level of the learner, you should make sure that you either simplify the lesson, grade it down for them. If you feel that the student knows the language well, you have to make sure that it is a challenging lesson for them. If it's a boring lesson, they're off in the class. So make sure that you either bring it down to the level so that they understand it, or you take it up so that you challenge them to learn in class.
Wonderful. You mentioned about challenging them to learn. So could you speak a little bit about that part?
Okay, so now see, going back to the topic that you said, introduction. Okay, now for a beginner, I just need to know self introduction. But if this student is going to be in the pre-int level, it's not just self-introduction. Maybe I have to move to the next level where I know how to introduce my friend to another person. So you bring it up to the level where the learner is. Or maybe they're going to introduce another person to a group, adding more detail. So according to the level of the learner, decide on how much they're going to talk.
Well, thank you so much. I particularly wanted to know about the challenges because maybe a year ago or so, the famous phonology teacher Adrian Underhill, after observing lots of teachers' classes, he said the teachers are enthusiastic, the class is great, almost everything is great. The materials are used properly, everything is good, but the students are not challenged enough, and that is where the students are feeling the lag. Like it's not exactly what they wanted. So he
Yeah.
also mentioned about this challenge. That's exactly why I wanted to know how what exactly it is and how far we should go. Thank you so much for answering that. And I would like to know what uh, kind of reward systems you mentioned earlier that people should work as a team. But then, adult or a child, we like to chase something, a carrot or chocolate, whatever it might be. So, what kind of reward system can work for adults and young learners and online and offline sessions?
See, when we talk about rewards, I haven't um, seen a lot of difference among kids and adults. Okay, they are the same. So even calling out their names and saying, "Oh, well, Balaji, you have done that very well, really correctly in class." Even that recognition is more than enough for a young learner or an adult, both.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, you can give them rewards. Now, if it is a group activity, you give them points.
Hmm.
It goes well both with the young learner classes and the adult classes. Okay. With online lessons, you can use reaction options that is
Yeah.
easily available. More than enough. Don't give them any more rewards because rewards, too many rewards might be too much of a pressure for some learners. That's
Yes.
something I have always noticed in class. So initially, I start with some rewards, but slowly I take that away from my lessons because I know my learners will anyway learn in class. So maybe to get them interested in class, you can start with some reward, but slowly take it away.
That's a great point, because I know all the time they cannot be chasing a reward in the real life.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Um, so, in case of the online sessions, I'm going back to the peer learning part. Uh, how can we promote peer learning in the online mode?
See, I don't find a lot of difference in the face-to-face class and the online classes in terms of peer learning. When they are in a class, you put pair them up. Same
Hmm.
way here also. You put them either in breakout room, give them work. And I feel here in breakout rooms, they work much better than in a class because, in a classroom, they feel like the next person is overhearing them from the next table. So don't worry about and don't think there is a big difference with a face-to-face class and an online class. It works perfectly well as long as our instructions are clear and we set the outcome really well. It works really well.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing all these valuable inputs. I would like to hear from you a few words for the teachers who think that they need something and they want to develop a skill set. They want to work on learning all these aspects, but they find it challenging to go for because of various reasons. They find it challenging to take up some useful or uh, very good certifications. They
Mhm.
it could be because of economical reasons or any other challenges. If there is anybody like that, but with a lot of enthusiasm to uh, make their teaching useful for the students and just get it make their classes really valuable for the students, what should they do?
See, something that I have practiced right from the beginning of my teaching career is reflecting on my lessons after every lesson. Okay. So after I have finished a class, I plan my lessons well, I deliver it, and after it, I sit and at least think about what went well, what didn't go well. So the next time I teach something similar, I know what didn't go well, and I'll make sure that I make the amendments and only teach in the class. That helps you to become a better teacher. See, it is all about how much you are working for yourself as um, professional development, in terms of professional development. If you don't work for yourself, nobody else is going to help you. So every time you take a class, take some time. Now it doesn't matter whether you note it down somewhere or you're just going to think about it, but it will definitely help you to reflect back and think about what went well and what didn't go well.
Wonderful. Uh, I, I just want to know if you are also uh, if you also know about any kind of online sources uh, or maybe teachers groups that teachers could be a part
See,
of to learn
yeah,
from each other.
British Council has something called as teaching um, English,
Mhm.
if I'm sure. Yeah. Maybe I can send you the link to put in the description box.
Sure.
That will help you, that will help any teacher who's listening to
Wonderful.
us to use those resources. And I can tell you in the beginning of my career, I have used a lot of resources from there, both
Mhm.
lesson materials and also a lot of tips from there to improve my own lessons.
Great. So, from the best person herself, if she has used that source and she has been doing what she has been doing because of that, then definitely it's going to help all of you who are watching. Uh, and I would like to take this moment to express my deepest gratitude to Mary. Thank you so much. It
Thank you.
really means a lot. Yes, I wish we have a lot of teachers who definitely get better and. Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time to do this.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you.